they were not just selling products, they were selling stories.
Education without exams just felt a little modernized.
Sustainability is not just like all about innovation and all about getting new technology or getting cleaner energies, but also
I was truly thrilled about how beautifully they have crafted it, right? With utmost patience, utmost resilience.
Do you know what happens when learnings go from different classrooms to different countries? Well, that's exactly what we're here to talk about when we, the students of Masters Union, went for a Global Immersion Programme to Europe this year. Welcome everybody, my name is Sharing Sabawal from the UG class of 2028 and I'm joined by my 3 peers who went through this beautiful journey with me together. Today, we're not just going to talk about how Europe was a very diverse experience for us, but also how it was a very perspective-changing experience for us. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that we did was go into the UN headquarters when we landed in Geneva. Did any of you just feel it was very intimidating?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Gayatri and I'm from the UG class of 2029. And for me, I think it was more of a realistic experience. Like imagine walking out of assembly room from a model United Nations to straight away in the United Nations in Geneva. For me, it was more about realizing the fact that all the debates that we have had during the MUNs, all the delegations that we have done can be of greater impact when you stand in that assembly room, which is there in the United Nations in Geneva, right? So for me, it was more about realizing that how great of an impact can some debates be of to millions of people.
So adding on to Gayatri's point was I like to introduce myself. My name is Kanav Gupta from the class of 2028 and I would like to give a special mention to the Human Rights Chamber, right? We all were very quiet there, right? Nobody asked us to be silent, but we all were because we realized how important that room is to all of us. As she said, it shapes millions of lives. So yeah, we understood its importance.
And I just feel like that strangeness and quietness just followed into the first networking dinner that we had that evening.
Yeah, hi, I'm Vidhi. I'm from the UG class of 2029 and I would like to talk about the networking dinner we had in Geneva. And I think we met quite a few experts like Simon Ford Coron from the Center of Humanitarian Dialogue. We met Bilal Hassan. We also met Dr. Albain Al-Brahimi from Les Roches. And all of them talking about conflict resolution was really inspiring, I would say. Especially for the fact that all their personal stories weren't just all about ideology. In fact, they were all very messy, complicated, deeply personal. And I think that gave us all a different outlook on how we see real world diplomacy today.
Yeah, so I did took one thing from that networking dinner, and that was that diplomacy is not just about grand speeches, right? It's more about how leaders influence people and have an impact on everyone.
So I just feel like that day really just set the tone. It wasn't just about sightseeing, but also more about perspective building, in my opinion. And then we went to Europe's heart and soul, Paris. Now, Paris wasn't just stunning. I feel like it was very deliberate in every single manner. From showing impressions to just, presenting themselves in every single manner. And I just feel like the prime example of that would be the Louvre.
Yeah, adding on to that, I think the Louvre was not just art hanging on walls. It was rather strategy. And it was also operationally insane managing those huge crowds. And I also learned that, and it is an inspiration for all of us rather, how France is leveraging culture into soft power. So that is something that we can really take upon.
I would love to add to your point. In fact, the Arc de Triomphe was a very good example of that.
Yeah. Indeed, right? So seeing the golden accents, the names engraved, and I mean, I really felt that France does not leave history and, it embeds it into daily life.
Yeah, and then when we walk into the Champs-Élysées and then suddenly it's like luxury, commerce and tourism all flowing. And that was such a contrast to the Arc de Triomphe all within Paris. And that was really what stood out to me at that point.
Yeah, I just remembered. Do you guys, have you heard about the Notre Dame? We did visit there.
Yeah, I was truly thrilled about how beautifully they have crafted it, right? With utmost patience, utmost resilience, the way they have rebuilt and restored the entire cultural heritage of Paris and I would rather say France within these museums, monuments, and all the gates and everything. I was extremely thrilled with the way it was all beautifully crafted.
The prime examples of that would be when we especially went to the World LPG Association and EDF. And I think that was one of the most mesmerizing experiences for me, as to learn about energy, renewable resources, and nuclear energy. It was just a very delicate subject. Also, it was a very fruitful subject, right? Because it's a very sensitive subject at most times.
Correct. And to a very larger extent, all the discussions that we have had with these great export people and the industrialists out there, the major thing that we could learn was what about the renewable energies, about the transformative effects that it might have on the entire globe. Especially the part when we happened to land into a discussion about Indo-French collaboration for the matter of renewable energies, right? So which made me truly realize that global problems genuinely needs global collaborations in order to have solutions which might actually bring huge impact to the entire world.
Yeah, and I think it also gave us a very different outlook and perspective on sustainability as not just like all about innovation and all about getting new technology or getting cleaner energies, but also more about execution, policy, regulation, all coming together. And I think we got that from a conversation where like different corporations, governments, and institutions all come together to like get sustainability in social media. It's just reduced to buzzwords and trends right now. So I think that was a very fruitful conversation we had all about sustainability as well.
Moving on from the cultural heritage and the workspace cultures, I feel like we should just talk about entrepreneurship as well, considering it's one of the most key areas about Paris. Station F would be a good example, I feel like.
Station F was absolutely unreal. Imagine 1,000 startups, 600 investors, they were all in the same area. And the fact I think we would all agree on is that they made failure seem as a very normalized topic. Like ideas were coming up pretty fast, they were scaled pretty fast, and then they would drop down as quickly if it didn't work. And I think that's what made me realize the importance of psychological safety in workplace environments and how that's something that fuels entrepreneurship and creativity at its highest level, I would say.
Also, a pretty good experience for me was when we went to the IESEG campus, right? It was a very diverse campus in itself, considering that we had to learn through live business problems, and education without exams just felt a little modernized, considering the traditional culture has been so used to that it feels so different now.
Right. Do you also remember about the stock market lab which they had inside?
I do.
Yeah.
I think all of us remember the Jamini Paris experience, right? It was very personal for me, right? Seeing Indian craftsmanship marketed as European luxury was very inspiring, to say the least. And what I realized there were that they were not just selling products, they were selling stories. And probably that's the reason why the products were like 3 to 6 times their usual price.
I do agree, because when we went to the networking dinner that evening, and when I had met with Khalid from SMP and Pratibha Pal from EDF, to learn about nuclear energy as a whole and sustainability and renewability just was so intriguing for me. And I do kind of agree with you on that point.
Yeah, during the networking dinner I also had a conversation with Theophile Chouquet, who really we had a really fruitful conversation about how communication is very important in leadership and how he emphasized a lot on clarity, empathy. And I think that gave me a whole another perspective on how leadership is, and especially workplace environments in Paris as well.
Yeah.
Apart from all that, I still remember when half the group went for Disneyland, and half the group went to Bordeaux.
Yeah. I mean, Disneyland was insane. Managing 15 million people in one day is operational mastery at its finest. And the fact they make every ride, every experience so seamless that you don't even realize there's a process behind it. And I think that's what was so inspiring to see. And it's all centered around the guest experience, and they make it so seamless.
I would love to say the same about Bordeaux as well. I mean, when you have traditional winemaking take a modern turn, it just feels very new, because when they have, if you're an 18-year-old kid or an 80-year-old adult, it feels the same, because technology has taken such a good way through the modernized modernized culture that they have taken, or the modernized approach that they have taken, that wine making just seems so easy, even though it's rooted so deep within the culture.
Right. And ever before you step out of that entire building where we understand about the crux of winemaking to exactly how it is being sold, the cultural part and the technological integration makes it so seamless for us to understand the very sense of France and its culture within itself, right?
Yeah, I would also like to add, like, Bordeaux and Disneyland are such two extremes.
Correct.
Like, Disneyland was it's more of a global thing, and Bordeaux was like deep rooted in tradition and like culture. But I noticed that storytelling was something in common between the two of them. Like, that's what they, like, long-term planning, storytelling, although they were like very extreme places, like two opposite ends, but that was something which was very common between the two.
I agree.
And then we landed in Netherlands. Of course, by Netherlands, I mean Amsterdam. And the three key experiences for me especially were Zaanstans, the Windmill Village, Rabobank, and of course, the Heineken Experience.
Yeah, so Zaanstans, I would say it was mesmerizing, at least, the Windmill Village. And I did realize that sustainability was not just a buzzword there, right? It was built into daily life.
Yeah.
Right. Talking about the sustainability, it was not just about the village. I would rather sense that in the Rabobank as well, like financing over more than 100 billion euros for sustainable agriculture. I think it brings a huge impact for that matter, right?
Yeah, and then talking about the Heineken experience we had, I think we were very amazed by the fact their brand consistency and brand storytelling, which like spans across more than 190 countries. And then you see that in the Heineken experience itself in person, like when they tell you all about the heritage and different history of their ingredients, and you see it in process. So the heritage, storytelling, and all scale, all aligned with one, that was pretty inspiring at the Heineken experience, I would say.
And then Germany being the final chapter, I feel like for me personally, it was a place for all the automotive enthusiasts. You know what I mean? All the major car brands, automotive engineering, everything just tops one another. From the Porsche Museum, from visiting the Porsche Museum to going to the Mercedes-Benz Truck Factory, I just feel like you can't just, replicate that experience.
Absolutely true. I agree. Because Mercedes-Benz factory, what we have realized is that even if there is a huge transformational technological integration that has happened, it is not truly replacing human touch, right? It is a very beautiful cohesion of like technology and then human work to actually build something meticulously beautiful as that of a Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. And coming on to the Porsche Museum, right, I felt that it tied everything perfectly together. Engineering excellence, innovation, and even the legacy and the storytelling of the brand, right? It was all amazing.
So I just have one final question for you guys. Apart from all the cities, the travel, the food, the learnings, do you guys think that you actually had something to learn for yourself in this GIP, values maybe? And would you go for another one?
For me personally, I would say I think this whole trip made me a bit more ambitious, but also deeply grounded, because whatever we saw in person, the storytelling, the heritage, the discipline it requires across all these brands, across all these experiences, I think it made me a more informed person than I was before the start of the trip. And also what was really exciting for me was the cultural immersion we went through and across 4 different countries. And I think that really excited me and that really inspired me. And obviously I would love to go for the next GIP whenever it happens.
It's super nice. And I'd like to share my views, right? So I learned that soft power is really important, right? We've always given it a backseat, but we should focus on building soft power, because that's how societies move forward and that's how we have an influence on other countries. And for me personally, I'd definitely like to join the next GIP.
Right. I very well agree with what Kanav has said. For me, it was more about realizing the fact that apart from the most fascinating cultural immersion with the entire work culture and everything, for me, it was more about the awareness of what I truly want, right? Exploring various opportunities, seeing that the world is huge enough.
Yeah.
I think it was very important for me to realize, which I have gotten out from the GIP, is that the consistency, the subtle art of being consistent and resilient at the same time is what truly builds power within you.
Yeah.
I mean, I do agree with all of you. And for me personally, I just feel like the more you dive deeper into, the learnings of the world, I feel like that's how you get to know what really learning is all about. Because once you're so used to the traditional structure, you don't really know how many structures are there to,
True.
figure out. So to answer my own question, yes, I would go for another GIP all over again. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We hope to see you soon.